Here we go. Hi, Paul Slacker's Good News Broadcast, speaking to Larry Carp. Hi, Larry. How are you?
Hi, kiddo. How are you?
That's Richard Lawrence Larry Carp?
C-A-R-P, correct.
Okay. All righty. You are living in, St. Louis, right?
Yes, I am.
Did you study at the Sorbonne?
I did.
There is a lot on you here. Okay. Right in front of me. And you're a lawyer?
That I am.
Okay. And you're a good guy. Our good friend Melanie Simon from Media for Humanity has told me about you and had only nice words to say about you, and that you're a do-gooder and have that in your soul. So tell us a little bit about your background. You're, it says Dr. Carp also. Is that right?
Not exactly. When we graduated from law school, it was a law degree, but then later on they gave us a JD, which is Doctor of Jurisprudence. So technically, that's what my diploma says, but I'm not permitted to use it like Dr. Carp.
Aha, okay, all right. It says that here in the Wikipedia here. But in essence, well, you just graduated, what? That was a couple of weeks ago, right?
I did what?
You graduated just a few weeks ago?
Several weeks ago.
You put them all together and it accumulated, right?
Exactly.
All righty. What do you like about what you're doing?
What do I like about what you talk about as a lawyer?
In any aspect of your life. Let's start as a lawyer.
Well, let's start as a lawyer. What I do, and I really like it, is I do mostly immigration law. And therefore what I do is to help people go from other countries to this country, hopefully to develop their fullest potential if they come through employment, and if they come through family relations, to join up with children, parents, brothers, and fiancés. So it's a very exotic and a very fascinating kind of law to practice.
Is that what you imagined you would be practicing when you started law?
No, I really started. I worked for a big law firm downtown, and I worked on whatever they assigned me. It was only later on when I went out on my own that I was assigned a case, and I happened to win the case, and that led to other things.
It's a little bit of a complicated, we've done procedure, isn't it? We've done multicultural marketing, advertising, and as a result of that, I learned a lot about immigration, because If you want to reach any ethnic community, it's a question of, like, are there more of that ethnic community moving into America? What are the difficulties those people have if you're going to be advertising and marketing to them? And there's all these ethnic newspapers, and a lot of people still stay very close to their ethnic roots.
Often.
And they have their cousins in the foreign country, and they're doing business. It's a fascination, isn't it? It's almost the tale of America, isn't it? It's the story of America.
I think it's not only a tale, but it's one of our strengths, because the fact that we're so multicultural causes us to have a kind of a balance that we wouldn't otherwise have.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, in the Civil War, which affected Missouri, as you know, the Missouri Compromise and so forth, the state was basically on the side of the South, but the city of St. Louis was on the side of the North, and it was because of the new Germans that had come, who had found more freedom in Germany than in some other places, and therefore we ended up being on the side of the North, but there was a real conflict between the two sections. To this day, for instance, the police board of the city of St. Louis is not appointed by the mayor of the alderman, it's appointed by the state legislature, which comes from the Civil War. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because the state didn't want to count on the city going in another direction. So the multi-ethnic thing is very, very important.
And I always found, since I've been doing it for 25 years, that in essence you can learn about all these different communities before you even go back to Poland or Russia or China or South America. They're here.
Right.
And that is, I agree with you. I think it's the beauty of a lot of our industries and businesses as well, especially, entertainment industry. It's made up of all kinds of people from all different places of the world.
Absolutely.
And they ended up with a finished product that has a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Absolutely.
It's a good thing.
a very good thing.
How about some more good things? What are some more good things in your life?
Well, I also write songs, musicals, and plays.
Really? Wonderful.
And those give me a lot of pleasure.
So give me an idea of something that you wrote.
Well, I wrote a play which I submitted to an agent 2 weeks ago before I came to New York, which is it's called The Descendant. And the story is about a young starter bookshelver at a public library in St. Louis who gets a visitor, and he asks where's the visitor from, and the man says, I'm from Jerusalem, and he said, what are you doing there? I'm the head of the archaeology department at Hebrew University. And the starter bookshelver says, who's 19, whose name is David Cohen, says, why have you come to see me from so far? And the man says, the visitor says, we've done a lot of research, and we concluded that Jesus, a young Jewish rabbi, was buried and that he had a child. And the starter bookshelver said, what's that got to do with me? And the visitor says, we've concluded, Mr. Cohen, that you're that person. And that's the premise of the thing, and it's a kind of a follow-up to the Da Vinci Code type.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact thing.
It's a nice story, and it's a feel-good story.
May you have just half of the success of that. Da Vinci Code was such a big success, and
Yes.
and I believe it's such a. What do you think is why do you think that that's such a success? What do you think the world's interest is in the historic value of, I guess, Jesus Christ and everything around
The Jesus story?
Yeah.
Because I think that, why do I think it is? Because so many things on television, as you know, the History Channel and so forth, the International History Channel, have to do with that particular period. I think there's a fascination with different aspects of that particular period, a messianic period, what the story was about Jesus, about the Mary Magdalene, and others. So I think that why that is because I think there's more inquiry now than there was in the past about things of that nature, and I think it's very positive. People are thinking, and most people stay with their beliefs, and there are some people say, as you know, within Protestantism who are separating the historic Jesus, as Albert Schweitzer did. He was a definitive biographer of Jesus, as you may know, and the belief system. And what they're saying within Protestantism, this particular group, is his message is so fundamental and so important and so essential. Let's separate that out of that we know to be true over things that we have to accept on the basis of faith, such as the virgin birth and resurrection and whatnot. And that's what a lot of people in this country are going through, and a lot of people aren't.
Well, two things here. One is I find it all fascinating. Actually, I went to seminary and I studied for 2 years as an interfaith minister, which is a believer of everybody's allowed to believe in whatever they want to believe in.
Right.
Even though I was brought up Jewish. But I have here actually something I'd like to read. It actually comes from something, Songs of Jewish Wisdom, but it says, here's an interesting thought. What is the sense of our life? What is the sense of the life of any living being at all? To know an answer to this question means to be religious. You ask, what is the sense of putting this question at all? I answer, he who feels that his own life or that of his fellow beings is senseless is not only unhappy, but hardly capable of living, says Albert Einstein.
Interesting.
Religion has become seems here in America, and I think research has proven it, that there seems to be a greater interest in religion right now.
Absolutely. I think that it's really interesting that as far as we know, we're the only animal that really wants to go above and beyond. We're not satisfied like all other mammals, as far as we know. We're just interested in leading daily life and procreating and laughing and having a good life and often a fun life. But for some interesting reason, we want more. want to go beyond. We want to have dreams. We want to have beliefs. We're not satisfied with the complicated, difficult, and often joyous aspects of our daily life. We search for more. We are puzzled and disturbed about what happens after us. We have a hard time, each of us, figuring out that we could die, that the world could go on without us. And therefore we have all this interesting inquiry, which seems to be part of the human condition. We're not satisfied to somewhat go off on a tangent that Oswald killed Kennedy. We're not satisfied during the time that John Wilkes Booth killed Lincoln. We want more. We have this infinite ability to discover, to go beyond, to see what's on Mars, to see if there's water on the moon. We're a very special kind of a being.
Some say that's our Achilles tendon, our Achilles heel. The need to never be, to a certain degree, okay with what just plain old is in front of us.
Well, it's either an Achilles heel or it's a strength, a belief, the belief in God, the belief that so many people, I've known a lot of people recently from the African community in St. Louis, and they often were extremely poor. 50 years ago in St. Louis, many people in the St. Louis community were extremely poor. They had no inside plumbing. They often did not have electricity, and they often had big families of 8 or 9 or 10 or 11, 12 children. They had little money, but they were happy. And what they had was they had family, they had love, and they had the church. And the combination was extremely, it caused them to be not only happy, but to not realize that they were poor.
I know you're involved here, I see here, with this Ethiopian Community Association of St. Louis.
Right.
Do you think we're all one? Do you think people from Ethiopians to everywhere else in this planet Earth, do you think we're all brothers and sisters?
We're all brothers and sisters, with the realization that brothers and sisters can often disagree, can often fight. The Cain and Abel business. So the business of being brothers and sisters is not necessarily axiomatically a happy relationship.
Okay.
Even as we see today in the Middle East, which I worked on when I was up at the UN.
Tell us about your UN involvement. And weren't you an advisor to Clinton at one point?
Well, what I was I got a phone call one day, and my secretary said, "You have a call, Larry." And I said, "Could you please tell me who's calling?" She said, "Who's calling?" I said, "The White House." And I said, "Oh." And I said, "Hello." And the person said, "I'm calling on behalf of President Clinton. You've been selected as a public delegate to the United Nations. And we have good news and bad news. Good news that you've been appointed. Bad news, we may not be able to get you vetted in time because we're so late." But they did, and I went up there. And not only did I serve as a senior advisor, but ultimately with public delegates, you go before the Senate often, but not always, and I did, and I was unanimously approved by the Senate. So it came from a phone call. So you never know. You better always answer the phone because you never know who's going to call you.
Yeah, but it's one of those kinds of things that, sometimes when success or when an honor is bestowed upon somebody, often somebody says, "Well, it's great to have gotten this honor. It only took me 60, 50, 100, 300 years to get it." I've been preparing for it, right?
Exactly.
That's the beauty of it.
There's a chancellor of Washington University called Bill Danforth, who's the brother of Jack Danforth, who's a senator.
Right.
And as he talks before commencement, he often says, "If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans," because you never know who's going to make that phone call.
That's true. That's true. Optimistic about the world about us? Yes,
I'm even optimistic about the Middle East. Yes.
Okay, and that's good. And you've continued work. I know you're just in your 20s or so, but you are still an active man. I know you're a little older than that, And how does that feel? To be not, in essence, retired, or you're a little bit past 65, let's say. Okay, how does it feel
Why are you so concerned about age?
Well, that's the point that I love. That you're so vital and so involved, and I'm personally a believer of that we're going to live all later to the 120s, and it's always good to see activeness in people.
Well, I think I plan to live to 131, by the way.
Good.
And I am the longest living male in my family on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it may be, I'm not sure why that's so, but I think it's because I'm interested in so many things that helps keep me vital. I mean, I have no alternative. I don't like weekends, to tell you the truth. I don't like sitting around. I love to be needed. I love when the phone rings. As Jesus said, to find yourself, lose yourself. Like when I came up to New York recently, when I talked to you on the phone, I came up just to resurrect friendships, such as with our friend Melanie Silver and many others. We entertained between 30 and 40 different people, and just to talk to them and see what they were at the dinners we had with these large numbers of people. We ran around the table first and said, "What do you do?" So they could all talk with each other, network. And then I said, "I'm going to tell you at the end of the dinner, tell us what your dreams are, big or small." I've already got 7 thank you notes, everybody saying what wonderful get-togethers. So what I did was, although I'm interested in selling plays and musicals and songs and whatnot, I went up being interested in others, you see. And it was, that's the reason of spending a lot of money, going up to New York, forming a community of people in the arts as friends, not just pushing product. And I think that, as I had in the previous trip a year ago, where we had a presentation of musicals at the Algonquin, which our friend Melanie attended, and I think that's the trick. Just when I first talked to you, we immediately related.
Correct.
We knew that neither of us was self-centered.
Correct.
You were pleased to see, apparently, that I was interested in you. That you felt good talking to me.
You made me feel great.
I felt good talking to you.
Oh, good. That makes me feel good.
Wasn't that exciting?
Yes, it was.
And that led to this follow-up.
It's all good.
That's the trick of life, really being interested in others. And often you don't do it for that purpose. They end up also being interested in you. Partly because when we have a relationship with somebody, why they like us is not because they like us. They like what they see of themselves in our eyes. You say, why do you kind of like me so far? Because you think I find you interesting, find you funny, find you charming. Right? Is that not true?
It's a combination of things, many things. But yes, that's part of it. I can't deny that. But I like people that have spirit and have openness. And I sense that, and I hear that out of you, and that's the big win for me. And to see someone who wants to help other people, that's another big win for me.
That's important.
And I think then they become then the winners, and they're the kind of people I like to try to promote on our good news, because they are good news. They're good for the world. They're positive energy. They're the act of positive thinking, and it's contagious. And that's the good news. It's contagious. When you're positive, the next one's positive. All of a sudden, you're all excited, and you're making something happen.
That's important.
It's a nice thing. Well, Larry, thank you. I want to appreciate this. I'm going to ask you one last question. So good news for you then is what?
Good news is the pleasure of meeting a new, fascinating, interesting, charming person, namely you.
That's very kind of you.
That's made my day.
And it's made mine as well. So congratulations. We'll get your website, link it over to there, and become friends here and speak again. Thanks so much for sharing. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, Larry.
Thank you, and I look forward to meeting you.
Okay, and I do as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.